Okay.
To go on after a significant loss. Often that journey can be seen, we're meandering, we're not sure where we're going. And throughout this lecture, I hope to give you kind of a bit of a GPS so that you get some direction on what that process looks like and why certain things happen in the process, in order to maybe navigate your afterwards journeys a little bit better. A lot of people don't realize that loss creates a brain injury. Uh, if any of you listen to, or you can listen to, a lecture that I did last year, the year before, it's on the site, on the grief brain. That gives a lot of the science behind what happens to our brain. I'm not going to go there today. You can listen to that. But we need to understand that our brain needs time and appropriate action in order to heal. So today we're focusing mainly on losses that are due to loss of a loved one or divorce or a serious breakup, although this can apply to other types of losses as well. So let's start with the basic premise that our bodies and our minds are made to heal. That's our natural course. The brain is part of the body. Now, unfortunately, that got kind of forgotten for a while, in science, right? The brain, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? We forgot the brain was a part of our body. So what I'm going to do today, in the beginning here, is compare the body and the brain and see the similarities in how they both heal. Because in the therapy that I do with my clients, a lot of times when I give a physical example, when they're like all kind of confused about what's going on with them mentally and emotionally, and I give a physical example, then they say, oh, I get it. So we're going to take a quick look at kind of the science behind how the body heals. So the first part is called homeostasis. That's a stopping of the bleeding. And here's what happens when your skin is scraped or punctured or cut. You start to bleed, right? What happens is the blood cells start to clump together and clot, protecting the wound and preventing any further bleeding. Then the clot also contains a protein called fibrin, and that forms a net to hold that clot in place. So how does that work with the brain? Like what's the metaphor, over with the brain? So what happens is we go into this shock when we've had a loss, and that's kind of that clotting, right? Now, for some people, they go into hysteria first and then shock. For others, the shock comes first. But there's some level of, I can't believe this is happening, or denying that this is happening. So, this is where isolation, which is like that fibrin, isolation can actually protect around the clot, meaning it can protect us while we heal. That's why we want to sleep all the time. That's why we feel like we don't want to go out. That's why we feel like even if we're out, we're only out for a short period of time. So it's important for us to understand, the body is naturally trying to heal. It's trying to protect me by me wanting to isolate to some degree, okay? So the next step in the body, let's go back to the body, is inflammation. Once the wound is closed with a clot, the blood vessels can open up a bit. They have to allow the nutrients and the oxygen into the wound so that it heals. The bloodborne oxygen is essential for the healing process. But what's important is that there has to be a right balance of the oxygen and the nutrients. Too much or too little, and we won't heal correctly. I don't know if anybody's ever had a wound like that. Another type of blood cell is the white blood cell that takes on the role of the wound protector. And then the cell fights infection and oversees the repair process. That's what the white blood cells do. You also might see some clear fluid around the wound, and that's helping to clean out the wound, while the white blood cells produce a chemical and messengers that create the growth factors, and that's what helps the repair. So that's what's happening if you cut your finger, right? Here's what happens with the brain. We need to allow the nutrients and oxygen. What are the nutrients and oxygen? Connection and isolation. We need to have them be in a balance. Too much or too little is no good, right? Just like the oxygen and the nutrients with the blood. So some of you may have experience where you've had a loss, and friends and family, although they mean well, they're telling you, go out, have fun, you'll feel better, right? They're pushing you. That's too much. Or somebody who just works. See, it's all off balance. It's too much connection. By the same token, too much isolation is no good either, right? Somebody who is not going out at all among the living and in bed and that sort of thing. So that balance is very, very important. And that support around us is, the therapy, the support groups, doctors, psychiatrists, medication. Those are like the cells that fight the infection. What's the infection in our brain when we're in grief? That's when it turns into the debilitating anxiety or depression. Okay? So it's really important to have those supports in place. And it's interesting, I think, that the body secretes this clear fluid in order to clean it out, right? What's the clear fluid when we're in grief? Our tears. It's very important that we clean that out. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the second half here. So that's the second step. The third step, you cut your finger, growth and rebuilding. So the blood cells, including the oxygen-rich red blood cells, arrive to help build the new tissue. There are these chemical signals that go on that instruct to create collagen. And collagen serves as a type of, it creates like a scaffolding and other tissues to begin to repair the wound. Occasionally you see, the scar, and the scar will be red at first, and then over time it dulls. So that's what happens when we have a physical injury. With our brain, people around us is important. It's important to get involved in activities and events where we can begin to experience joy. That's like the scaffolding. We're kind of taking those steps out into the world and with other people, not forced and not just going through the motions, but we're starting to actually sort of engage. So these experiences over time, they help to dull that pain. Our pain, even when we're crying or we're upset after a loss, it's not quite so intense. It's just like the scar that starts to heal over. The fourth step and last step in the healing of a cut, over time, the new tissue gets stronger. You might notice that there's a stretching and an itching and even maybe a puckering around the wound as that happens. And within 3 months, the wound is almost as good as it was, before the trauma. The entire healing process, even for a cut, can take a couple of years to complete. So what's this tell us with the brain? Part of the rebuilding of our lives might feel uncomfortable, right? Just like a physical wound, we have to stretch. We might have to step out of our comfort zone. But these actions help us to become stronger. It's uncomfortable to move away from our grief at times. I have clients who tell me, especially the ones who've lost children, that part of their fear is that as they move away from their grief, that they're going to, they don't want to leave their child behind, don't want to forget, that sort of thing. And so that feels very awkward and uncomfortable for them to stretch further out of that comfort zone. But that's really important in this final process where we can strengthen, the healing and then the strengthening. So that's why a therapist is important, to coach somebody through that. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. So we can't we can't rush the healing process. Look, if it takes a cut a couple of years to heal, it's going to take our brain a while, maybe even a lifetime. And so the impatience that a lot of us have, we have impatience with our healing, but think about it. Don't the people around us have a lot of impatience, right? They want us to be better because they feel uncomfortable, and they want us to be better because they love us. But that's why I think it's important for all of us to understand the grief process, because I think then we can educate people. Then we can say to them, this is going to take a while. And we can maybe, explain a little bit more in detail to them, like what you've heard here. So this is the process, but we also have to look at what blocks that healing, right? One of the most damaging factors in wound healing, if we have a cut, is a reduced or inadequate blood supply to the wound. So how does that apply with grief, right? If the oxygen, the nutrients, and the new blood, that carry all that essential healing stuff aren't there, what's going to happen? I have a client who's had a loss of a child, and the husband has just drowned himself in alcohol, which has unfortunately, caused a multitude of issues and problems financially as well as others, because he's not allowing that support to come in. So there's such an important element of that balance, and then allowing for that growth to happen, and then the strengthening, because if we get stuck, we're in trouble. So we got to keep that process moving. Just like if we got stuck with a wound, if we kept the bandage on too long, my partner just our new cat that we took in has this condition, and he went into a seizure and he bit her. I don't know if anybody's ever had a cat bite, but it's the worst kind of bite you can have. So we had to go to the emergency room. But so she's been keeping a Band-Aid on it. But the doctor said, don't keep it on for too long, because if you keep it on too long, then it's not getting the oxygen, right? It's not getting the balance that it needs. The nutrients are in her body, but she needs oxygen. And so, he said after a certain time, you need to take the bandage off, and so that balance is really important. So let's look at these phases of what I call the afterwards journey. So now we understand that kind of, our brain is literally having a physical injury, and it heals the same way the body does. The afterwards journey is actually the name of my website too, afterwardsjourney.com. So there's kind of 3 phases that we're rolling through. Of course, they're all crossing too. But let's look at the grieving part. I'm famous, my clients will tell you, I'm famous for pulling out my thesaurus all the time, because words have meaning. And words can get us stuck, or words can free us, right? So let's look at in the thesaurus, what are the synonyms to grieving? We lament, we're mournful, sorrowful, sad, miserable, we ache, we suffer in anguish, we're distressed, we're hurting, we're wounded, we're in pain, we're upset, we're distraught, we're devastated. Okay? It's important that we name these feelings, because when we're naming them, we're hearing them, and we can actually feel some compassion for ourselves. Like right now, don't we all feel compassion for Loretta, right? Because we know she's not just going through physical pain, but it's tough. It's like it messes up your life, right? So we need to be able to do that with ourselves as well, to hear our pain so that we can be compassionate to ourselves. There are also specific actions that go along with those feelings. So we have to engage ourselves. We have to allow ourselves to cry, to sob, weep, wail, beat our chest, punch the pillows, scream into them, throw things. You can throw things in your house. I learned you throw empty milk bottles. the thin plastic milk gallons, because you can really wing them and it doesn't break anything. So just a tip. So it's important that these feelings, that we sit with them and we name them, but then we act on them. We express them. I have a client, a young man who both his parents died in a car accident. He was in the car 8 years ago. A month ago, cried like a baby with me for the first time. Okay? Kept it locked up. Didn't name the feelings, except anger. And now some healing is happening. Okay? So, I always encourage my clients that if they get stuck and they can't release, put on the sad music, look at the pictures, take a drive, write in the journal, take a walk, kind of get that cork out and allow us to just, some people are not criers. Well, we cry on the inside, even if we're not crying on the outside. And that's okay if we're just allowing ourselves to cry on the inside. So I get that it's hard to sit in our grief, but we have to. We have to, as part of that healing process. It's an active process that our brains and our bodies need to be engaged in. Now let's take a look at healing. Let's go back to the thesaurus, right? This is a process that we need to allow. Like, we need to kind of be open, like I said, to the idea that we're naturally made to heal, okay? So we have to create an environment for the opportunities for healing, right? So those actions that we need to take are, we need to seek that support. So in the thesaurus, it says that support needs to be curative, therapeutic, corrective, meaning like sort of changing our ways of thinking, like around grief, instead of thinking, oh, I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps, thinking about it differently so that we're more compassionate and patient. Reparative. I have someone who has gone through multiple losses in their life, and one of the things that she does that is kind of reparative to her right now is she's taking control of what she can. And every morning she gets up and she goes to her swim class. She can control that. It feels normal. It feels like it's not chaotic, and that can be reparative. We need to create opportunities to be restored, restore our health, things that are beneficial, that are good for us, as opposed to destructive to us. So those are all the actions that we need to take around, that help us to allow this healing to happen. And this leads to a more complete healing when we're open to that process, as opposed to shutting it down because of old beliefs or things that other people are telling us to do. And also understanding that allowing ourselves to heal is not dishonoring our past or our loved ones, that we deserve to heal, even if we still feel some guilt around things that have happened. We're all human. We all do things that, mess things up. So it's a natural process to become, again, I'm going to go back to the thesaurus, sound, healthy, to alleviate the sorrow, to improve our thinking, to mend our brokenness, to be open to reviving joy again, to soothe our wounds with self-care, to renew our sense of wellness. This is where our body and our mind want to be, and we've got to allow for that by creating those opportunities. Lastly, recreating. It's interesting that in the thesaurus, a synonym of recreation was reimagine. Unfortunately, I think as adults, we've kind of lost our ability to imagine. As children, we do that all day long. So we kind of have to, stir that back up again. So if we're going to reimagine, There are, again, specific actions to doing that. It involves vision and action. So a vision is, it's forming a mental image or a concept of what we want our lives to be in the new reality. So I have some clients who have gone through divorce. So that's the loss that they've come to me around. And as we've worked through a lot of the grieving and the healing, and they're looking to recreate their lives, one of the things I have them do is create what I call relationship template. And it only has 4 questions on it. And it says, who do I want and need to be in a relationship? Because a lot of times we lose ourselves when we go into a new relationship, right? So we want to make sure that we really are anchored in, who do I want to be? And also, who do I want to be, as that person's significant other? The second question is, what character traits and values do I want and need in a significant other? Not just what do we have in common, what interests do we share, but what are those character traits and those values? If somebody says one thing, but then says they want to spend time with you, but they're a workaholic, then they're not really showing that they value you, are they? And character traits. I had someone who, she was doing online dating and, got to the point where she was going to meet someone, and they went out, and he was a perfect gentleman to her, but he treated the young female waitress like crap. That's a character flaw. She did not date him again. So character traits and values is very important. The third question, excuse me, let me just take a quick drink of water. I have a piece of granola bar in my throat. The third question is, how do I want to feel in this relationship? Because that's very important. I don't think we would put on there that I want to feel bored or that I want to feel taken advantage of, but that's what happens in a lot of relationships we end up in, right? So, how do I want to feel in this relationship? And the fourth question is, what experiences do I want to share with my significant other? Because that's important. Some people, for them, something like traveling, let's say. Some people, that's a very romantic bonding experience, and so they want someone who loves to travel. For other people, it's like, I want to travel with my girlfriends and just have fun, okay? So we want to know what those experiences are that we want to be able to share with our significant other. So I give them that template, and then I tell them, make sure while you're dating, you're looking at that at least every week, because it keeps your head in the game, and you're able to, hopefully make, good decisions around that. So, that's what I mean about a vision. We need to have some sort of idea of how we want to move forward with people who've had a loss due to death. We get the vision of how they're going to engage in life with the living, with people who are still living. So how they're going to engage with their grandchildren and their spouse now that they lost a child or whatever it may be. So that reimagining is really important. And then taking the action to regenerate that life again within ourselves, rebuild our self-concept and our relationships by, what are the new things that we're going to get involved in. I have a client who had a loss due to death, her daughter, and she said to me the other day, I don't know who I am anymore. And so I said, okay, describe to me who you were as a child, before middle school, elementary school, and all that. So she told me all kinds of stories, and she went to Catholic school. She told me how she was a chatty Cathy, and she and her friend used to always talk, and she used to put her hands out and get slapped by the Vince. That's right, slapped by the nuns with the ruler. But so we were, as she was talking, I was just putting the descriptive words down, and then we talked about middle school. We talked about high school. And so, uh, who she was, before she was a mother and before she had this loss, um, she was adventurous, she was curious, she was an insatiable reader, she was precocious. Like there were all these things. Said, you're still that. Now we have to figure out how you're going to engage with that in your life now. And so, that's a big part of recreating too, is looking, within ourselves. We can look outside and see what we want to get involved in, but we also have to look within ourselves. So hopefully, this gives you, some idea of this kind of process. As you move forward, you're not forgetting your loved ones. You're not forgetting or leaving behind the chapters of maybe a broken relationship. Those were not a waste of time. We can always learn from them. If we can learn, it wasn't a waste, right? So I'm going to close with the definition that's on my website of the afterwards journey. And then I'm going to open it up to any questions about anything I talked about today, as well as just some general, shoot from the hip, any questions that you have in regards to your own understanding of, your own losses and that sort of thing. I'm not going to do therapy, but I will, hopefully give some guidance. So here's the definition. The afterwards journey begins the next chapter of your life. It's a time of grieving by allowing yourself to fully acknowledge what's been lost. It's a time of healing by reconciling what was with what is now. And it's a time of recreating your life by honoring your loss, engaging in the present, embracing the future, and moving forward. And that's the afterwards journey. I hope you got something from it. So we'll open up. If you all muted yourselves, I guess you can unmute yourself if you have a question. Or even just a comment.
Very helpful information, and the way it's framed, it feels very helpful.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, like I said, that when we realize sometimes our losses are like we got hit by a Mack truck, right? And I say to people, well, if you got in a really bad car accident and you were in the hospital with 10 broken bones, people would not expect you to get up and run a marathon in 2 weeks. They're expecting you to be okay in a couple weeks regarding a loss, right? No, our brains take just as much time to heal. Glad that was helpful. Miriam, you had your hand up.
Well, I just also was just going to say thank you, because, and even Vince said something a couple weeks ago, like if you have to lay down, like, I moved to South Jersey, which was coming home for me, but I was in the DC area 28 years. I was surprised at how long it's taken me to acclimate. And then one of the reasons I moved back was for my mom. And then 10 months later, she passed away, and it was just like, and I think really. Oh my gosh. And then also we're new empty nesters, my boys, so I was like, yeah, I realized it was really more than I bargained for. And I spent so much time watching movies and stuff. And I just felt affirmed, like that's what I needed to do.
Right. That was your brain saying, okay,
I just needed to rest.
The oxygen connection and the isolation.
But now I realize I do need to mix the isolation with, and now springs, I'll get to it. Yeah. But that's what I needed to just relax.
Rest. Because
so thank you.
You had 3 losses. That's like breaking 3 major bones in your body.
Exactly. It was a lot of change, too much for a codependent in 1 year, but I'm working through it.
Good.
Thank you.
I don't know who was next. Just go ahead.
Hi, Vince. A friend told me about this. So this is my first time here, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I lost my son in May of 2021, and I haven't had any grief counseling. I did find a therapist, but she absolutely did have no knowledge in grief. And so I feel like you said, you know, the brain injury and the shock, and I've always been one to take care of myself. So I got up every single day after my son, because I said, I'm not going to allow depression to set in. And so I got up every day and walked. I walked so much. I had blisters on my feet, and I would cry. I've cried oceans of tears. But you know, I was able to take 6 months off of work, and then I had to go back. And I guess where I am right now is I'm struggling really bad with starting of depression. So it's starting to make me fearful that
that debilitating part is starting to set in. So when we have multiple losses, or you know, certain losses are complicated just by their very nature, you know, a sudden death, a suicide, a violent death, those kinds of things. Certainly loss of a child falls in that category when we've had multiple losses. So it takes more time. In fact, loss of a child can take 3 to 5 years. And that doesn't mean that you feel the way you feel right now at year 4. It's just that there's a lot more, because we lose our past, our present, and our future in that. What I would say to you is go to my website and email me. Okay.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, nobody in the area specializes in loss of a child, other than me, as far as I know. So
It's so true. And when you, don't have that help, I mean, just listening to you today, I felt like this relief that I'm not going crazy. And like you said, you know, and I'm listening to everyone else, you know, what I should be doing. And I think that, you know, I'm not being validated for the horrific loss that I've experienced. And for me, I feel like I'm getting worse. Like that.
Well, yeah, a lot of times you get worse before you get better. I tell people to when they're seeing me, I say, always check with me with what other people are telling you to do, and I'll tell you whether it's the right thing to do or not.
Could you put your website in the chat, please? Not sure.
I am not any better at this than Vince is. Oh, wait a minute.
So you just click on chat.
I can put it.
I'll put it in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Doing it. Wait a minute.com. Ta-da.
Thank you.
It's all one word.
Okay.
You didn't do it on there. I think Chandra, you were next. I'm going to go through like this.
Okay. I have a question. Do you feel, I know that physical loss is real loss, but loss of a wish or dream, because sometimes we wish to do something and it has not happened. People really go through the similar process. Yeah.
So on my website, you see, I have 4 boxes, and the one is loss of a loved one, and then loss due to divorce or serious breakup, life-changing, life-altering illness or injury, and then there are other losses. And so that would fit kind of in that category with, when we have, I had a client a while back who played on the female NBA in Canada, was it? It was another country. I just don't remember what country it was. And was hoping to become, pro, and then maybe come over back to the United States and pro, and an injury and some other, it wasn't a serious injury, but some other things kind of just made that not happen. And yeah, she was in deep grief. It was a goal. It was a dream, because once we've imagined it, it's real. It's just as real as a person standing in front of us who died. You see what I'm saying? So yes, you actually absolutely will go through the same same kind of process. But fortunately, again, if we can find who we are at our core, like that woman who, she was precocious and curious and all that, we say, wait a minute, there can be other dreams, there can be other things. Now I need to grieve this first, but this is who I am. And so if I'm capable of having a dream at all, I'm capable of having another dream and, going towards that. So that's what we have to get back to is that core.
Thank you.
Jean, I can't see. Yeah, Jean C.
Hey, I have a question. What happens when you repress or suppress the grief process?
Grief is like water. It will find a way. It'll come out in illness, physical illness. It'll come out in a bitterness so that you keep people away, you keep causing conflict that are keeping relationships away. I call it, it's like the rotting food in the back of our refrigerator. What happens to it? Okay. First, we just forget about it. But in time, it starts to grow mold. And then it starts to stink. And then it stinks up the whole refrigerator. Right? So we really need to get, look, I have people come to me years later and we're finally unpacking. And that's okay. Better late than never to do that. So yeah, when we repress it, it's not good. It turns moldy and stinky.
Okay, thank you.
That image in your head. Anyone else? You have to raise your hand, otherwise I don't see it. I can't tell. Okay.
Pat, there was a question in the chat
Oh, okay. Oh, look at you working the chat, Vince.
about that. It says, she wanted to know, what is stage 2? Just a quick summary of stage 2.
Oh, okay.
And she missed it.
Yeah, is the grieving, the healing, the recreating. So the grieving was, we really have to understand what we're grieving, right? And how that's impacting us. And we really need to sit with it and feel it. The second stage is that healing, and that a lot of times we won't allow to happen. Or we just jump over it to, okay, I'm just going to recreate my life. And we don't allow for that kind of slow figuring out what's best for us. Sort of like the divorcee who wants to start dating. You better kind of know what you need before you go recreating into new relationships. So that's part of that process is just even ourselves.
Oh,
Oh, bless you. So does that, let me just see if I missed anything else with that. Yeah, the main thing is to allow it and to be open to it, but we have to create those opportunities in the environment. That's the key. We can't just be in our own head. We need to read. We need to read more about grief. We need to listen to things like this, in Vince's series, and because it gives us new information that can help with that healing. Just like somebody, poor Loretta, I'm going to use her as an example again. So Loretta first went to the emergency room and saw those doctors, got an x-ray, I'm sure. But then she saw a surgeon, and now the surgeon has done his part. And then the doctor's going to follow her for a little bit, but then once the cast or whatever is going on, then she's going to have physical therapy. So see, she's going to see different people along that whole process of healing. And so in that healing part, we might need to tap into different resources along the way, just like physically, we would tap into different types of doctors along the way. Does that make sense?
Just a quick question. Can you say a couple of words on age-related grieving?
Age-related grieving, meaning grieving as
people get older and their transition in life and stuff to that effect.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm plugging a senior citizen.
I'm turning 60 in a month. I know for you, Vince, that's not very old. But
That's young.
For me, it's the oldest I've ever been. So, yeah, but yes, I'm experiencing, I mean, I'm postmenopausal. So for you women on the show, you understand what I'm saying about that grief. Yeah, that is, again, that kind of fits in that category of other losses, that we lose certain faculties. We lose, I think somebody, the woman who was talking about dreams, sometimes we get to that point where we can't have certain goals and dream. I have clients who are going through fertility issues. One in particular is probably going to have to grieve being, the idea of being childless, because she's so, her eggs are too old. And there aren't other options for her. So, again, it's this similar kind of there's a book, it was out a long time ago, Tuesdays with Maury. Some of you may be familiar with, but what struck me, one of the main points that struck me about that book, so basically, if you're not familiar with it or you don't remember, there's a young, I think he was a student and he turned into like a journalist, comes back to interview Maury. Maury is deteriorating from ALS, which is terminal. And at one point he asks Maury like how he deals with each, as he loses another faculty, because that's what happens, it just kind of goes through your body and you lose functioning. And he said, I sit with it, like I sit with that loss, and say goodbye to that ability, that faculty, but then I look and see what I still have left. And so, like, I was an athlete. I was a soccer player. I mean, I was a tomboy. I climbed trees and all kinds of craziness. But then I was an athlete. I ran track, held the record for a while, played soccer, all that kind of stuff. And now, I got a bum foot. I got a bum knee. I got a bum shoulder. I just can't throw football anymore. I was the quarterback on a team of all guys. So, can't do those things, but like, what can I do? Okay, so now I'm playing the old people sport. I'm playing pickleball, right? I'm playing golf. And the thing, what can I still do with the body that I have now? What can I do in the role? As we get older. Here's a really important point. So, talking about the brain. It is true that as we get older, we lose memory functioning. Okay, we're all pretty aware of that. But, so the younger people, they're one up on us for that. But as we get older, the corpus callosum, which is that middle piece of our brain, actually gets wider. And it's shown that we're better at using both sides of our brain as we get older than young people are. That's wisdom. When you use both sides of your brain, you can see the different angles. That's wisdom. We have it, younger people don't. Okay? So we can also look at our mental faculties as, because we get frustrated. I can't remember anything. You know what though? Tell me some stories. I bet you're pretty wise. And that's one of those things we need to, get better at in this country. Is, as I've gotten older, I have older clients now. Because, when you're young, older clients don't want to come to you. They think you don't know anything. And now I've been through enough life. I've had breast cancer, loss of a child, divorce, all the kind of stuff you go through between now and 60. And so, I gain wisdom from them, the older clients that I have. So aging, I think also we have to change our perception of that. Are we losing some things? Yes, but we've also gained a lot. We've also learned a lot. We also have a lot to still give and share. We're not useless. Look at Vince. Look at him go. 80, I don't know. What are you, 103? What are you, Vince?
82.
Right. See, look at Vince. That's all you have to say about aging. You just look at Vince.
I always say that about senior communities, the stories those people could tell. It's unbelievable. It's just like
Gold mine.
a gold
Oh,
mine,
Absolutely.
gold mine.
I got books of them, kid. Don't worry.
Any other comments in the chat there, Vince? Now that you know how to work it?
Nothing else is there. Okay, well, thanks a million. It was really great. I enjoyed it. And thanks a lot for everything that you do, especially as Starting Point. Pat really does a tremendous amount of work with people that have lost children. You know, it's really a powerful experience. You know, so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that you're here to do that with us, okay? So I want to thank all of you for being here. Just a reminder, I'll be starting a new series next month. It's called the Iceberg Theory, a 4-week series. And it's a concept of so many of us have kept stuff in that iceberg for a long period of time. We do a lot of talk on shame and different types of feelings and how to be able to melt the iceberg and open them up. And in relationship to addiction, in the sense that many of us have learned different elements of self-medication. So I'll be doing that series for 4 weeks next month. So you're welcome to join us and see what happens with it, okay?
Great.
And all the information is on the website. And also, if you want the daily email about stuff that's going on, if we don't have your email, please send it over to us on our website, startingpoint.org. We'll gladly put you on the email mailing list, okay?